Europe is often seen as a land of prosperity and stability. But what if I told you some countries are on the brink of collapse? In 2024, a combination of economic struggles, political instability, and demographic challenges is pushing certain nations closer to the edge. From shrinking populations to crumbling infrastructure, these countries are fighting an uphill battle. Today, we're counting down the top 10 fastest collapsing European countries in 2024. These nations might be part of the developed world, but their issues are anything but first world problems. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more engaging content. Let's take a look. Number 10. Greece. Greece has faced economic challenges for over a decade, and 2024 is proving no different. Although the country managed to stabilize after its financial crisis in the 2010s, high inflation, stagnant wages, and a shrinking labor force are dragging it down again. Unemployment remains high at 11%, with young people disproportionately affected. A rapidly aging population is another major issue for Greece. Nearly a quarter of its citizens are over 65, and the younger generations are leaving in droves for better opportunities abroad. This demographic shift is straining the country's pension system, threatening long-term economic stability. Public debt remains alarmingly high, at over 175% of GDP, leaving little room for investment in essential services. Crumbling infrastructure, from roads to healthcare facilities, is making life increasingly difficult for residents. Tourism, a key economic driver, has also taken a hit as other destinations become more competitive. Political instability further complicates Greece's problems. Recent elections resulted in a fragmented parliament, making it difficult to pass much-needed reforms. The government is struggling to tackle corruption and inefficiency, which continue to undermine public trust. While Greece's beautiful islands and rich history remain a draw for visitors, the cracks beneath the surface are widening. Without significant intervention, the country risks deeper economic and social collapse in the years to come. Number 9. Romania. Romania is grappling with a host of issues in 2024, making it one of Europe's most vulnerable nations. Economic growth has slowed dramatically, with inflation eating into household incomes. Many Romanians are finding it increasingly difficult to make ends meet, leading to widespread dissatisfaction. The country's rural areas are particularly affected. Infrastructure remains underdeveloped, with many villages lacking access to reliable electricity, clean water, or healthcare. This divide between urban and rural areas is driving a massive exodus to cities, or even abroad, where over 4 million Romanians now live. Corruption is another significant problem. Despite efforts to tackle it, Romania remains one of the EU's most corrupt countries. This corruption has hampered economic development and discouraged foreign investment, further limiting opportunities for growth. Demographic challenges are also mounting. Romania's population is shrinking rapidly due to low birth rates and high immigration. Schools and hospitals are closing in many areas, leaving communities without essential services and deepening the sense of decline. Despite its natural beauty and rich cultural heritage, Romania's struggles are becoming harder to ignore. If these issues aren't addressed, the country risks further economic stagnation and social disintegration. Number 8. Italy. Italy's struggles in 2024 are both economic and demographic, making it one of Europe's fastest collapsing nations. The country's national debt has reached a staggering 150% of GDP, and inflation continues to erode household purchasing power. Many Italians are finding it harder than ever to maintain their standard of living. Italy's population is aging at one of the fastest rates in Europe. By 2024, nearly 30% of its citizens are over 60, while birth rates remain alarmingly low. This demographic imbalance is putting immense pressure on the pension system and healthcare infrastructure, which are already stretched thin. Unemployment, particularly among young people, remains a persistent issue. Nearly 25% of Italians under 30 are jobless, leading to a brain drain as skilled workers leave for better opportunities in Northern Europe or beyond. This exodus further weakens Italy's economic prospects. The country's political landscape isn't helping matters. Frequent government changes and a polarized parliament make it nearly impossible to implement the long-term reforms Italy desperately needs. Corruption scandals and bureaucratic inefficiencies only add to the country's woes. Despite its global reputation as a cultural and culinary powerhouse, Italy's internal struggles are casting a shadow over its future. Without significant intervention, the cracks in this iconic nation will only deepen. Number 7. Bulgaria. Bulgaria is struggling to hold on to its population, economy, and political stability in 2024. The country is one of Europe's poorest, with GDP per capita far below the EU average. Economic stagnation and inflation have left many Bulgarians feeling left behind, with wages failing to keep up with rising costs. Emigration continues to plague Bulgaria, with millions of citizens leaving for better opportunities in Western Europe. This brain drain is eroding the workforce, leaving businesses struggling to find qualified employees. Meanwhile, rural areas are becoming ghost towns as younger generations abandon them. Corruption remains deeply entrenched in Bulgarian politics and public institutions. Despite pressure from the EU to implement reforms, progress has been slow. This lack of transparency and accountability deters foreign investment and undermines public trust in the government. Infrastructure is another weak point for Bulgaria. Roads, railways, and public services remain underdeveloped, particularly in rural areas. Healthcare access is limited, and many hospitals are underfunded, leaving residents without adequate care. Although Bulgaria boasts stunning landscapes and a rich history, its systemic issues are holding it back. Without major reforms, the country risks further economic decline and social fragmentation. Number 6. Ukraine. Ukraine's ongoing challenges in 2024 make it one of Europe's most precarious nations. The war with Russia has left the country's economy in tatters, with GDP shrinking by over 20% since 2022. Infrastructure damage from the conflict continues to hinder recovery, with entire regions struggling to rebuild. Millions of Ukrainians remain displaced, either internally or abroad, straining the country's social fabric. Those who remain face high unemployment, inflation, and a lack of basic services. Many families are reliant on international aid to survive. Corruption, long a problem in Ukraine, remains a significant obstacle to progress. While the government has made strides toward reform, much work remains to be done. Transparency International continues to rank Ukraine poorly in terms of governance and accountability. The war has also taken a toll on Ukraine's demographics. The loss of young men to conflict and immigration is creating a demographic crisis, with birth rates at historic lows. This imbalance will have long-term implications for the country's economy and society. Despite its resilience and international support, Ukraine faces an uphill battle. The combination of war, economic collapse, and demographic challenges makes it one of Europe's fastest collapsing countries. Number 5. Latvia. Latvia, one of the Baltic states, is facing a troubling decline in 2024. Despite being a member of the European Union, the country struggles with slow economic growth and a shrinking population. Low wages and limited job opportunities are driving Latvians to emigrate, particularly to wealthier EU nations like Germany and the UK. The demographic crisis is one of Latvia's most pressing issues. Its population has decreased by over 20% since 2000. And the trend shows no signs of slowing. Young professionals and skilled workers are leaving, creating labor shortages and stalling economic development. Economic challenges in Latvia are compounded by high inflation, which has eroded the purchasing power of the remaining population. Energy costs, in particular, have skyrocketed, leaving many households struggling to pay their bills. These economic pressures are fueling dissatisfaction and further emigration. The rural-urban divide in Latvia is also stark. While the capital, Riga, shows signs of growth, smaller towns and villages are becoming increasingly deserted. Infrastructure in these areas is crumbling, with schools and healthcare facilities closing due to a lack of residents. Despite its beautiful landscapes and rich culture, Latvia struggles with immigration, economic stagnation, and an aging population make its future uncertain. Without bold reforms, the country risks further decline. Number 4. Serbia. Serbia is grappling with significant challenges in 2024, making it one of Europe's fastest collapsing countries. The nation faces persistent economic woes, with unemployment rates hovering at 10%. Wages remain low, driving many young Serbians to seek better opportunities abroad. Corruption is a long-standing issue in Serbia, affecting everything from politics to business. Public trust in institutions is at an all-time low, and efforts to root out corruption have been slow and ineffective. This lack of accountability discourages foreign investment and stifles economic growth. Infrastructure across Serbia is in poor condition. Roads, railways, and utilities are underfunded and outdated, particularly in rural areas. These shortcomings make it difficult to attract new businesses or improve the quality of life for residents. Serbia is also facing political instability, with frequent protests against government policies and corruption. The country's aspirations to join the European Union have stalled, further dampening public morale and economic prospects. While Serbia remains culturally rich and geographically strategic, its economic struggles, political instability, and ongoing emigration are pushing it toward deeper decline in 2024. Number 3. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina continues to face deep-seated challenges in 2024, more than 2 decades after the end of its civil war. The country's complex political system, divided along ethnic lines, has hindered effective governance and economic progress. Corruption is rampant, with political leaders prioritizing personal gain over national development. Economic stagnation is a major issue, with unemployment rates remaining stubbornly high at 15%. Many young people are leaving the country in search of jobs and better living conditions, exacerbating the nation's demographic decline. Remittances from the diaspora have become a lifeline for many families. Infrastructure in Bosnia and Herzegovina is underdeveloped, particularly in rural areas. Roads, schools, and healthcare facilities are often in poor condition, making life difficult for residents. Urban areas like Sarajevo offer more opportunities, but they're unable to accommodate the needs of the entire population. The country's complex ethnic divisions continue to fuel political instability. Disputes between its 3 major ethnic groups, Bosniaks, Croats, and Serbs, frequently stall decision-making and prevent the implementation of necessary reforms. While Bosnia and Herzegovina has made strides since its war-torn past, its ongoing struggles with governance, economic stagnation, and emigration put its future at risk. The country urgently needs stability and reform to reverse its downward trajectory. Number 2. Albania. Albania, one of Europe's poorest nations, faces numerous challenges in 2024 that are accelerating its decline. While the country has made progress in attracting tourism, its economy remains fragile. Low wages and high unemployment, currently at 11%, are driving many Albanians to leave the country. Emigration is a significant issue for Albania. Over 1.5 million Albanians, nearly half the population, now live abroad, contributing to a severe brain drain. This mass exodus has left the country struggling to fill skilled positions and sustain economic growth. Corruption is deeply entrenched in Albania's political and economic systems, discouraging foreign investment and undermining public trust. Efforts to combat corruption have been slow, and the country's bid to join the European Union has faced repeated delays due to these governance issues. Infrastructure in Albania remains underdeveloped, particularly in rural areas. Access to healthcare, education, and reliable utilities is limited, leaving many communities isolated and underserved. Urban areas like Tirana show signs of progress, but the benefits have not trickled down to the rest of the country. Despite its natural beauty and tourism potential, Albania's ongoing struggles with corruption, immigration, and economic stagnation make its future uncertain. Without significant reforms, the country risks further decline. Number 1. Moldova. Moldova is at the top of the list of fastest collapsing European countries in 2024. As Europe's poorest nation, it faces an array of challenges, from economic struggles to political instability. GDP per capita is shockingly low, and nearly 40% of the population lives below the poverty line. Emigration is crippling Moldova, with over a quarter of its citizens now living and working abroad. This exodus has left the country with a shrinking labor force and an aging population, further straining its fragile economy. Remittances make up a significant portion of Moldova's GDP, underscoring its reliance on its diaspora. Corruption and weak governance remain major obstacles. Despite some progress, Moldova continues to rank poorly in global corruption indices, deterring foreign investment and stifling economic growth. Political infighting and external pressures from Russia and the EU complicate the situation further. Infrastructure in Moldova is in dire condition, with rural areas particularly affected. Many villages lack access to basic utilities like clean water and reliable electricity. Roads and public transportation are outdated, making it difficult for residents to access opportunities in urban centers. While Moldova has made strides in aligning with European Union standards, Its systemic issues are deep-rooted. The country's future hinges on bold reforms and international support. But for now, it remains Europe's most vulnerable nation. That's today's list. These European nations face immense challenges, from economic stagnation to demographic decline. What do you think can turn things around for these countries? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the videos popping up now for more insights into global trends. Thanks for watching, and as always, be kind to one another.